my grandmother inherited it from her first husband. He, we believe, was a masseur to royalty and high society.
How very colourful.
At the time of King Edward VII,
right.
Who was then, at that time, Prince of Wales.
Right. What I think is very distinctive about it is really the quality of the marquetry at the top, which is on a rosewood ground and is extremely well executed, dating from the sort of mid to second half of the 19th century. And it's very, very close to the marquetry that was produced in southern Italy around Sorrento. And in fact, it still has a very strong marquetry tradition there now. What I think is really interesting about it, which I've never seen on this type of occasional table, is that it has, as you know, the tilt top. But actually, when we have a look at the back, cleverly fitted in the top of the stand is this very, very unusual feature of actually having a lovely writing cabinet as well,
right.
Which is a fascinating feature, actually. I've never seen that anywhere. But what's really nice about it is I think the figures are sort of so extraordinary, actually, because they don't look remotely Italian in some ways. They look very, very alpine, but the use of this parquetry star diadem border and then these rather free-flowing, what are meant to be rather stylized vines and grapes,
right, yeah.
is typical of Sorrento things in the sprays. And they just had a very, very successful thing. They made trays and pictures and tables, and it was a really thriving business, actually, which still goes now. And it's a miracle to see it in such good condition.
Thank you.
I think you ought to insure this specially, and I think it's the sort of thing that ought to be insured for around £4,000.
Right.
I think that's how much you'd have to pay if you went to go and try and find another.
That's interesting.
It's a lovely thing, though.
Yes, beautiful.
He's obviously a good masseur.
Obviously, yes, he was. Thank you.
We have it recorded in ownership by a gentleman who died in 1748, which means that he may have acquired it, or his wife may have had it at an earlier date. When he died, it passed to Walter Coles, who was in the goldsmiths company.
Right.
And when he died, he left it to his niece, who married one of my ancestors.
Right.
So
it's
short
been
history.
You know where it has been for all its life, almost.
Almost,
I mean,
yes.
The wonderful thing is the fact that it is recorded as being handed on from one person to another really establishes it as a treasure. And it's not surprising to see why. When we look at the colours of the silks on this casket, they're almost as great and as blindingly flashy where the sun hasn't got them as they might have been on the day they were made.
Kept it out of the ultraviolet.
Absolutely. Well, the sun is death to things like this. What we have here is a silk embroidered casket. Each panel would have been embroidered separately and then applied to the wooden carcass underneath.
Yes.
What I'd like to do is just open the doors and have a look at the inside of this superb embroidery. The colours in here, to me, look almost unbelievably bright.
Yes.
If you look at them for the first time, you would say that was made in China. You know, they are so startling.
Yes.
And we're talking about colours that were made from natural materials, and here they are looking as though they've been made out of chemical dyes. It's quite bizarre.
Yes.
Wonderful, wonderful things. These were, to all intents and purposes, a lady's combination beauty case and filofax. In the 17th century, they kept everything in here.
Yes.
They kept their love letters in here, they kept their pomade in here, they kept the little patches to hide their smallpox scars in boxes like this, and also their jewellery, of course.
Yes.
And that's very fitting that something that was a jewel itself was going to contain other very precious and valuable things. And if we go round onto the back here, which I think has been kept against the wall, incidentally, so I think the colours are even better on this side.
Yes, yes. Scenes in the life of Joseph.
Scenes in the life of Joseph, absolutely. And I love this man in sort of full Commonwealth costume, riding a camel, which is a most unlikely scenario. And here is poor Joseph being plunged into the pit down here. It is a marvel, isn't it? And on the end here is my very favourite view of Potiphar's wife, leaning urgently out of bed and grabbing him by his shirt tails as he attempts to flee her bedchamber. Is without doubt one of the best scenes I've ever seen on a glass.
Even since Genesis.
Even since
Nothing
Genesis.
changes.
I think this is wonderful. What a treasure to see, and you've absolutely made my day. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure.
The next thing is, what do you insure an object like this for? They are becoming very sought after by collectors. People realise how rare they are. So few of them about, particularly in this sort of condition. So I would think if you were going to insure it, I would really be happy if you were going to insure it for about £25,000.